There are many times when we'll want to have global or image-based lighting, and we can do that in Arnold using what's called a skydome. So let's take a look at that. So by default, we can go into Lights, Skydome Light, and that just brings in a dome. So if I hop out to a 4 view, you can see that this basically creates a dome over the scene. And if I select that dome, I can manipulate it. So if I want to, I could scale it, I can move it, I can do whatever I want. Now, the thing about this dome is that it emits light from its entire area. So we're getting a global light from all around the scene. So if I were to go into Arnold and do an Arnold render view and hit run IPR, you'll see that I'm getting a very big wash of light. Now we can certainly turn that down by keeping this selected and just turning down the intensity. And as you can see, this is creating a very nice global ambient light. Now having a light that's a single color from all around, it can work in some situations, but typically what we want to do is create what's called image-based lighting. And this is where this really comes in. So under the color channel, instead of just creating a single color, we can input a bitmap image into it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little checker and select File, and then go ahead and go down the rabbit hole here to the File node. And under Image Name, I'm going to select, let's go ahead and select clouds.jpg. And that's just a panoramic image of clouds. We're going to go ahead and open that up. And now, look what happens to the rendering. We get those clouds as our light source. Go ahead and minimize this. Now, one of the things I'm noticing here is that we do have a scene, but we can select that sky dome and rotate it so that we don't see it. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here. Let's just see what we have. So I'm going to go back into Arnold render view, and let's go ahead and start dialing up the intensity. So you can see that this not only acts as a light source, it also acts as background illumination. So I'm getting kind of a blue and white light, I'm getting reflections, and so on, just from this sky dome. Now another way to use this is to combine it with HDRI imaging. Now an HDR file has a much broader dynamic range than something like a JPEG, and it can actually be used as a very efficient light source. So I'm going to go back down over to my file node here. And instead of clouds, I'm going to load up studio.hdr. Now notice how this is essentially an analog of a studio with lights. Now this is also an HDR file, so it has a much bigger dynamic range. Go ahead and click open. And as you can see, the lighting changes here. So if I close this for a second here, you can see how, if I zoom out, you can see that I have all of these different types of lights. So I want to go ahead and place my lights so that they are around my object. And then when I zoom in and do a quick render, you should be able to see them. And again, you can see this is a very realistic form of lighting. If I go up to my sky dome attributes here, I can certainly turn down the intensity. I'm going to bring that back down to 1. And as you can see, this gives a great global wash of light. And because this is actually emitting light from specific areas of the images, I'm also starting to get some nice highlights here in the reflective surfaces. Now, this method is actually a great way to do things such as product shots. You bring in an HDR light of the studio you want to use, and then you just apply that to a sky dome. So hopefully this gives you some ideas as to how to use sky domes and image-based lighting in your scenes.